All right, it looks like we're live and we're going to go ahead and get started. Well, first of all, thank you and welcome to Networks Live on Demand. Today, I'm thrilled to bring you Jen Griswold. She is the author of Mission Entrepreneur, the #1 bestseller in the military category right now. Her book was only released on October 5th, so it's fairly new. All proceeds this month are going to organizations that support military entrepreneurs. If you have a question for Jen during this webinar, please use the question and answer box or the chat feature, and I'll read it out loud at the end of her, and she'll make sure and answer all of them. Same for a Facebook Live audience. If you have a question, type it in the bottom, and I'll read it out loud to her. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jen. Jen, thank you for being here.
Yay, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Okay, so hello everybody out there. This is kind of fun to be on a webinar with a new group that I've never gotten to see before. So thanks for tuning in. And of course, if you pop on and you haven't told us where you're from yet, we'd love to know that, just because it's fun to get to see where you're coming from and the power of virtual. Sometimes we even have people overseas, which is always fun. So to introduce myself, my name is Jen Griswold, as you mentioned, and I have sort of a unique background, I guess you could say. I think I'm a true blue star family girl, because I started my career as an officer in the Air Force. So I met my husband at the Air Force Academy. I grew up in a small town in Montana. That was my best way to get to a better college. So I went to the Air Force Academy. I was a maintenance officer in the Air Force active duty for about 6 years until I started having kids. I have 2 children, a 12-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter, who are super busy. And because my husband is still active duty, we decided it would be better if I hung up my boots active duty wise, and he continued on, and then I joined the reserves. And so I've done each level of commitment in the reserves. I'm about 18 years in, and still doing some reserve time at the Pentagon here in Washington, D.C. So I'm super proud of that career. But when I transitioned from the full-time working girl to the stay-at-home mom, I don't know about any of you on this page, but I definitely felt awkward. Like I was a fish out of water. As much as I wanted to believe that stay-at-home motherhood was everything, because I'd heard a lot of people say that, I actually was really uncomfortable. I loved my kids. I loved my time with them, but I was just really feeling like I was slipping away. This hard charging, goal challenged, sort of career woman was slipping away as I was, doing kiddie things all day long, which, don't get me wrong, I actually love that experience, but there was just something missing. And I'll never forget this particular day that stays in my memory forever. And I talk about it a lot, actually, where I was sitting on the floor with my 2 munchkins, and Kevin was deployed as usual on that assignment. He seemed to never be home. And I looked at the 2 kids. They were both sick, and I was just utterly exhausted in every possible way, both physically, mentally, all of it. And I just wasn't happy. I said, this is not the dream life that I sort of envisioned. And it was in that kind of low moment when I decided to make a change. I decided I was going to look for work. Now, I was young and naive and didn't realize that I wanted a 6-figure part-time job. And you guys are probably laughing at me, because that doesn't really exist, right? I think most military spouses who have been around the block realize that's pretty hard to come by. So I couldn't find it, and I didn't want to be away from my kids. That was the last thing I wanted to do, was abandon them and put them in daycare all day long. But at the same time, I really wanted to be successful and make 6 figures. And I couldn't see any spouses around me that were doing that. In fact, what I was hit with is that 90% of my friends were not working. And Blue Star families, thank goodness for them, have now put that into actual survey numbers that say 90% of military spouses are under or unemployed, meaning that they're not working, or they're working for less money than they should be making. And yet 90% report that they want to be working. So I was seeing this firsthand with my friends. I was looking for jobs, couldn't find one. And so I just resorted to the idea that, you know what? My parents were entrepreneurs. I can do this. I can make something work here that would work around my life. At the time, we were stationed at Travis Air Force Base in California. My kids were super tiny, newborn and 2. So don't think that it was the perfect scenario by any stretch. I didn't have like the perfect setup. We didn't have any money. And actually, to be truthfully honest, we were sinking in a California house that the mortgage was, the worth of the house is about half of what we bought it for. So it was definitely the low point in my life for sure. So I had to do this on a shoestring. But what I found out is that I could do it. So at that time, I just took a talent, which was decorating, and I love decorating. So you'll notice that it's a major priority for me. And when we were moving from house to house, I was always redecorating one into the next. And I would do it on a really tight budget, but I was really proud that it always looked really good. And I truly believed that if we moved into our house and it looked good, it felt more like home. And so I decided that was going to be what I shared as a business with the world. And so at the time, home staging was a brand new thing on HGTV. And I plugged into that kind of category in California in the middle of the recession when there were a lot of empty houses. And thankfully for me, when a lot of people didn't think it would work, it did. And for 4 years, I grew this tiny little brand, Cozy Chic Design, from nothing into something. And it was like I got my breath back. It was like I was me again. And yet I was doing it. I was working harder than ever. I had the 2 munchkins in tow. They would come with me to a lot of my decorating jobs because I didn't have enough money to pay a babysitter. Or if I did pay a babysitter, I knew I had to make enough money that day that I would be able to pay her. And so like I said, I think I worked more in that 4 years than I ever have, but I was also happier than I had been in the previous, multiple years, at least 3 years before that. And so I just realized the power of entrepreneurship, and I started thinking, how can I share this with more women? I mean, obviously not everybody out there, not every military spouse wants to be a decorator, but how could I teach them the power of just owning their own business and how much life that brings? And at the same time, I was thinking, all these women, all these military spouses have the tools that it takes to be an entrepreneur. I mean, you're resilient. You've moved many times with or without your husband, and moved kids and bought houses with or without your husband. You're leaders in many different ways, whether that's in the spouse network or, other different avenues within your life. We volunteer, we serve. We think about things bigger than just ourselves. And I thought, that's all the makings of a really good entrepreneur. So all this is rolling around in my head when I was offered the opportunity to start the skincare company, Rodan & Fields, 7 years ago. And that was how I built the large majority of my success in the past 7 years. We now have 10,000 givers, is what we call them. Our name of our team is Team Give. And the whole premise is that we bring the service from the military, the mindset of the service in the military, into our business. So we're not just selling skincare to make money, but we're selling it to empower others, whether if they need a paycheck or help them with their skin. And then we use the funds that we get to give back. Our particular team supports Nights of Heroes, which is a summer camp for kids who have lost their parents to military service, started by a bunch of friends of mine from the Air Force Academy that I'm super proud of. Last year alone, our team donated over $45,000 to that camp experience in just 2 months of fundraising. So I'm really proud of what we built. But I think the bigger thing that came out of it was this idea that we tested it. Because of our 10,000 consultants, I would estimate about 2,000 of them are military spouses. And a good handful to 2 handfuls of my direct partners are making 6 figures or more. Now, that was something I had never seen in the military community before. I had never seen a spouse above me in the chain ever working, first of all. Secondly, running a business. And third, actually making money. So it became very apparent to me, this is a story we have to tell because people need to know how good they are in the military community. And so therefore, this is where the book came from, because I got this unique offer to write I got interviewed for another book, and they said, would you want to write up your story? And so the name of it is Mission Entrepreneur, and it's basically applying the lessons from military life to create success in business startups. And that's exactly what we did. So in the book, you'll find a lot of stories of very successful military entrepreneurs that started coming out of the woodwork once I had success. And you'll hear their stories, but you would have never met them because they're not the one that's at the coffee or the tea in the squadron. They're not the one that's going to be out in front all the time, organizing things, because they have their heads down in their office building something great. So you'll see names like our Riveter in there, who makes handbags out of, old uniforms. And I love their mission with their company. You'll see Courtney Slasnick, who's another Air Force friend of mine, who built an amazing online blog and photography business teaching online courses. And then you'll see my other friend, Jen Robbins, who took her Lyme's disease and her suffering and turned it into an amazing brand called Predominantly Paleo for people who needed to heal themselves through food. And now she has an enormous following and 4 successful cookbooks. But I'll promise you, nobody ever knew about them prior to this in the traditional military world, because they were too busy working their business. So I wanted to share those stories and really inspire people. And today, I wanted to share with you a couple nuggets that I've learned over the years working with 10,000 women. The first thing before I start is, I think I've made this big observation that in general, this is not just military women, but women in general. After working with 10,000 of them, I can tell you that women in general do not believe in ourselves. And I say that from a very genuine place, because when I was the girl on the floor, I did not believe that I had anything to offer. It took a lot of gumption to say, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to go hire myself and make my own job if it doesn't exist. Because here's the thing. My little munchkins weren't telling me I was great or that I was doing a great job and, really putting in lots of time, even though my husband was never around. My husband, I love him to pieces, but he was never around. So he wasn't telling me how great I was. And then, of course, society was telling me in magazine articles that you only need to be a certain size or a certain look to be successful. And really, there just wasn't a whole lot of people feeding my soul to say, you know what, Jen, you're good. Go do this. And I've learned now that that is my place in the world, is to tell people and to show people how good they are. And with these 10,000 entrepreneurs I get to work with, I see it every single day. Enough feeding of the soul and the light bulb comes on and they feel like they can tackle the world. And they realize, I have talents. I can do something. I can push myself outside my comfort zone. So this is not anybody's fault. I don't want you to ever feel like, okay, if I feel like I don't look the part or I don't think I have the skills or any of that, it's not your fault, but it's something that we can work on, something that we can change. And if we do it in a big way, I think you're going to see the military community soar. Because when we as spouses or other, partners believe that we can do it, we can support our military member better, right? Because if we're happy, then they're happy. And that's what I've learned through my business, is both me and my husband are happier. Not to mention we have a little cushion in our bank account so that we can consider schools for our kids. We can consider a different kind of job once he retires, and we can have those options we never even had before. We only could do what the Air Force told us. And so I think this is something that we can work on as a whole, and I'm really excited to see if I can be of help to you. So 5 tips I want to give you today. First of all, and I say this all the time, everything starts with your why. If you have not read the book, The Power of Why by Simon Sinek, I highly recommend it, because it is a mind-blowing aha moment that I had after that book. And I realized that in the military, we have a why, right? We know why we serve in the military, because there's a greater good. We're protecting our country. We believe in the Constitution. We believe in the flag. And it's something that moves us so much that we will literally die for our country. That's a big why. But a lot of other people don't have that why. And a lot of spouses don't have their own personal why, right? So we have to devise what it is that motivates us to get through every single day. Okay, so this can be applied in many different settings. If you're a spouse and you're feeling a little bit crummy about the service that your husband or your wife is doing and how much time it takes and how much it puts you through, maybe you need to devise your own why. What about this career makes you proud? What about it makes your heart sing? Maybe it's leading other spouses. Maybe you need to get more involved there. Maybe it's showing your kids that we stand for something bigger than just ourselves. Whatever it is, you need to really come to terms with it and figure it out. For me, it was, with my business anyway, I saw a need for the 90% of military spouses that don't have jobs that want them. And I had this little inkling that my business could be it if I just worked it really hard and I was able to show them the power of what I knew business could do. And that has become my why every single day. I just came off of one of the busiest weeks of my life with this book launch. And, I was exhausted, but I would never say no to this interview because this is my why. This is who I want to do it for. I'll work until I'm tired as a dog because I care that much about military spouses. And you need to care about what your mission in life is that much as well. So really think about, what is it that gets me up every single day? What makes me proud to be me? And there's a couple actually helpful things in chapter 3 here. These are some things that might be helpful when you think about your why. What are your self-defining activities? Are you a runner? Have you been a worker all your life? Are you in MOPS organization? Did you work as an active duty member beforehand? Are you a business coach? What are the things that really define you and what makes you who you are? Think about that, because when you're nailing your why, it's typically going to feel like you're your best you. So really think through that. Then who are the people that you want to serve? Think about that. So if I want to serve military spouses, but yet I'm hanging out with everybody that's not military, that doesn't really serve my why. Maybe you love to volunteer at the thrift shop, and that is your why, and those are your people. So find more ways to interact with those people so that you can be serving your why. And then become the go-to expert. I love that I took on this 90% underemployment as almost like my own mission. And thanks to Blue Star Families, I have numbers to put to that. But I would have been terribly afraid of writing this book had I not known that I am the expert. For 10 years, I've been working in this space and understanding what women go through and what they want. So I didn't feel bad about pushing myself outside of the comfort zone because I'm the expert in this category. And I felt okay with that because, I'm the only one that knows, and we have to get that story out there. And then find people that value what you do. I mean, that's what I'm here today. That's why I'm here today, is because you all obviously value entrepreneurship and you're a part of the Blue Star family. And that's why, I wanted to be here specifically, because this is the people that need to hear this. Okay, so that's the first step, is find your why. Then the second thing is respect yourself. I think this in the military, we so easily get pushed aside, not in an intentional way, but just in a way that our military member always comes first, the mission always comes first, and we understand that. But at the same time, you have to respect yourself enough to know that you deserve to do something too. I do this exercise with all my entrepreneurs when they're brand new. And once they're there and they've kind of decided what their goals are for their business, I'll ask them, in 3 years from now, if you were working your very hardest, meaning that you're putting in everything you got, you're not letting things fall apart at home, but you're pushing to the limit of what you can actually do. You're working your hardest because you're passionate about that why. What do you believe you can make in your paycheck? What would be the right amount that you deserve to make in your paycheck? And it is a fascinating exercise. If you want to know more about where I got that from, it's a book called The Secrets of Six-Figure Women by Barbara Stanny. That I absolutely love that book. But what I found is that we as women are really weird about money, you guys. We are just all over the place about money. I think we wrap ourselves in the idea that money is evil. If we make a lot of money, we're bleep bleep. A lot of those things, like power is not always so great when you're a woman. And what happens in this exercise is women typically report no greater number than the amount they've ever made in a job before. So even though some of these women are attorneys, or they could even be doctors or nurse anesthetists, or a lot of accomplished people, they will never say a number more than what they've ever made in their life. So the biggest paycheck I ever made was $3,000 in a month. That's the number they'll write down, nothing higher. And that just leads me to believe that we don't think beyond, the glass ceiling that's been set for us. And in the military, a lot of times we're not working at all, so we don't feel like we deserve anything. The reality is you've got to respect yourself and know that you are that good. You're that good just by existing. All the things you do as a military spouse make you a great entrepreneur, but you have to respect yourself enough to know that you can do it. and to say, I can take some time away from the military, time away from my family, a couple hours a day to pursue something of my own. Now, that doesn't have to be a business, but something, whether that's, health, or whether that's volunteering more in a place that you want to, or whether that's just getting better at something. You deserve it too. And again, that goes back to our retention. If you're a better version of yourself, you're going to be able to support the military in a better way, happier family, better all around military, right? And the other thing I want you to remember is that respecting yourself and going after something is not the opposite of being supportive in the military. They're not mutually exclusive. You can be successful and support the military at the same time. I have a lot of in the Air Force, we have high-ranking individuals that could be wing commanders or generals' spouses. And a lot of them come in scared to run their business because of what it could do for their husband's career. Now, I am both, right? A reservist and a spouse. But I 100% believe there is a professional way that you can run a business that it should never affect your spouse's career. And you have to know where that line is, but you also need to respect yourself enough to say, if I'm going to be a business owner, I'm still going to be successful. And I'm not going to let the fact that the rank of my spouse will keep me away from it altogether. I just have to find the professional way of doing it and then stay in that lane. And I 100% believe there's a place that we can do that easily. It should not be scary. Okay, third point, you got to value progress over perfection. So in the military, we want perfection most of the time. And I have been on both ends of this, expecting perfection as well as striving for perfection. But the reality is, if you do something perfect, it never gets done. A lot of times it takes way too long to get done. In business, you just don't have time for that. It's always going to be done is better than perfect, right? I tell myself this constantly because I'm kind of a recovering perfectionist, if you will, but I'm also creative. So I battle myself a lot. I call myself and one of my kids a beautiful mess. But what I've taught myself is that you just got to do it. This book, I could have revised this thing like 10 more months if I let myself. But you know what? Good is better than done. People need to hear it. And I always say, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know whose plane is going to crash. We don't know who's going to get cancer. We don't know what's happening. So put it out there. You have a gift. Let it go. And just value progress over perfection. There's this fascinating TED Talk that I encourage you to go look at. The woman's name is Reshna Sajani. And the name of the TED Talk is Teach Girls Bravery, Not Perfection. And I want you to hear this straight from her. It's in the book, in the 5th chapter. And here's what she says. When guys are struggling with a coding assignment, so computer coding, they'll say to the professor, there's something wrong with my code. And the teacher will review the code and offer suggestions. But when a girl calls for help, the teacher will often find the student staring at a blank screen. And if the professor didn't know any better, we'd assume that the student spent the entire class staring at just a blank screen. But when the professor presses undo a few times, then you'll see that the student had wrote an entire code, but then this little girl deleted it. She tried, she came close, but she didn't get it exactly right. So instead of being proud of her progress, she'd rather show nothing at all. And how many of us are guilty of that? Now, over a lifetime, that breeds the exact feeling that we're feeling, that less than sort of feeling. Unlike men who interpret failure as an opportunity to ask what went wrong, we as women blame ourselves for an imperfect outcome and we ask, what's wrong with me? Okay? So this is what we're trying to overcome. You got to value that progress. Even if it's wrong, stick it up there. Ask your daughters tonight at dinner, baby, what did you fail at today? Because that's what we need is a next generation of military women that are strong and know they can do things. And even if it's not perfect, they can do it anyway. So value progress over perfection. Okay, number 4, know that fear is healthy, okay? When you're dealing in, perfection and striving for perfection, we often also want safety. And fear makes us feel unsafe and insecure. But here's the thing. Fear is what is your compass, especially in business. Fear is your compass to tell you exactly where you need to go. Last October when they said, hey, would you want to write a book? I immediately went into my shell and thought, you know what? I grew up in this tiny town in Montana. Our English program was terrible. I'm not a good writer. It took me doubly as long to write papers in college as everybody else. I don't know if I can do it. And then I thought, you know what? I'm scared because this is something I'm supposed to do. Fear is my compass, and I know if I'm pushing myself outside my comfort zone and I'm scared, I'm probably right where I need to be. So if something scares the heck out of you when you think about what kind of business would I start or what kind of thing would I do to better myself after I watch this video, then that's exactly what you need to be doing. And you need to just say, I'm going to give it a good try, because you only live once and you have something really special that you probably can help other people with. Okay. So know that fear is healthy. And in the 5th chapter, we talk a lot about Navy SEALs and suck factors. And one of my good friends was a former Navy SEAL, and he kept telling me all these stories, which I put in the book, about how he got through the training at the Navy SEALs, which I'm sure you've heard much about. But he said when he went into his Navy SEAL training, you know, you kind of size everybody up, right? You look for all these tough guys because they're all tough. And this friend of mine's arms is like bigger than my legs. Seriously, he's a super tough guy. But he said he saw this one guy that looked like he was going to be like the winner, right? He was a svelte, big-chested swimmer, super athletic, super in shape. And then there was a guy right next to him that was kind of the less than svelte guy that was eating a pizza right before he started. And he said it was the best lesson to never say one person has more of an advantage, because in the end, what they do at SEAL training is they put the suck factor up pretty high. They'll start with, like, they call it on a scale of 1 to 10. They put the suck factor up to like 3 or 4, meaning that they're making you freezing cold, you're in the water, you're miserable, you're hungry, and then they drop it back down so you're okay, you can recover. And then the next day they pick it up to like a 5 or a 6, making you even more miserable, and then they drop it back down. And then they push it up really high to an 8 or a 9 where you feel like you're gonna die. And that's when, he said, that was when the guy that everybody thought was gonna be the #1 grad dropped out. He rang the bell and he gave up. And it had nothing to do with his physical ability. It had all to do with his mental ability, because in the end, what you're looking for in the Navy, what the Navy SEALs are looking for, is the person that's so committed, they'll do anything to serve their country. They will die for their country, and they will literally push themselves to the brink of death, or truly to death, to make sure that happens. And that's the kind of commitment that they need. And guess who actually was the #1 grad? I think, if I remember the story correctly, was the pizza eating guy next to him that didn't have this physique that you would have guessed, but it was because his mental game was so tough. So you have to have that kind of awareness to know, yes, you're going to be scared. When the suck factor goes up to 8 or 9, you're going to be scared, but that's your compass to say, this is where I need to be. This is when I push through, because whatever it is I'm working towards, whether it's Navy SEALs or my business or getting through this 20-year career, matters this much to me that I'll do it. So know that fear is healthy. And then last, I just want to leave you with the challenge, to challenge yourself somewhere. So hopefully, obviously you showed up to this session, so you care about, getting better and bettering yourself in some form or fashion. So whether you want to start your own business and you're really thinking through, what is it that I have as a talent that I can go share with somebody and help them, do it. Inquire. If you want to write me, I'm happy to help you through deciding what the right business is, or the book does a good job of that too. Or if you just want to lead something, maybe you really want to lead your squadron spouses to do something that you've never done before, and that's outside your comfort zone. Do it. Sign yourself up. Put that fear to action. Or if you just want to be the best version of yourself and you haven't worked out in a while, or you haven't pushed yourself in a challenge, you want to go run a race, or you want to do clean eating for 30 days, do it. But like I said, my philosophy always is live, give, serve, and grow. If you can take this one life we have and make something of it, and in the midst of all that, serve others and find ways to grow, you're going to be a happy camper. So just to close, I think my vision and my wish for our military community is that we would raise the bar. I feel like personally, I've raised the bar on what I believe I can do, and I think that's spreading to a lot of others that I'm getting to work with now. I just hope that you will raise the bar wherever you are, because I know that there are younger spouses, there are younger military members that are looking up, and when I was that girl, there was nobody to look up to that really inspired me. There was nobody that was saying, you should do this, or that's a great idea, or yes, go start a business. Nobody was saying that. So I hope that we can change that for the next generation, because I think the power of military business owners, the power of, healthy, thriving military people that are bettering themselves and pushing themselves in every way, I don't even know that we know the potential of what we can do. So I hope that you'll take on that challenge and really raise the bar in whatever it is you're doing. And to Ashley, thank you for having me to stick around and do some of those questions if anybody has one.
Yeah, actually, there are some questions. Thank you so much, Jen. My first question, well, not my question, but the first question is, what would your advice be for a military spouse entrepreneur that has moved to a new location?
Great question. Okay, so we move every couple years, right? So you have to look for a business that's going to be super portable. Thankfully, I put those in here for you. I gave you 5 options that I have seen the most success with, and they're pretty simple. I have a lot of friends who have blogs. I think that's one of the most portable businesses, because it doesn't matter how many times you move. It doesn't matter if you have a new base or not. You take your followership with you everywhere. You can monetize your blog by making either ads, or you can have lots of different affiliates that you can do, or you can have a product or service that you start selling. But blogs are a really great way. The other couple options that I've seen is photography. There's a lot of military spouse photographers, and that's something you can take with you anywhere, and it only takes word of mouth to get that going. I do direct sales, social commerce, if you want to call it that. That too, I would caution you in which kind of business you start. I think it's much better to start one that is very virtual versus needing to carry stock with you, which is kind of hard when you change bases. But research your company, because that can be a really good option. But what I would tell you, if you're going to do direct sales, you need to think of it as a true business, not just a hobby of selling a few things here and there. Take it on all the way, because you have the talent to do that. And then we've got online courses, which is another great way, or selling a product or service. A lot of people do Etsy and that kind of a thing. The thing I would tell you about moving to a new base is hit the ground running. Know where you're going. You always have a few months of knowledge beforehand, right? Do your research, find out who the movers and shakers are. In the Air Force, we tend to go to the Airmen and Family Readiness Center to look for who the movers and shakers are. That's usually where I go to ask questions of who knows where the jobs are, where can I get in front of people? Is there any Facebook groups or different things I can be a part of? So do your research, and then don't be afraid. You got to meet a lot of people if you want your business to be successful, and you can't be shy about talking about it. Be proud. Tell them what you're doing. Whatever business you have, tell them about it. Tell them what you're looking for, and then, follow up with them afterwards. But be determined to make that thing work no matter how many times you move, because that's where people fall short. They think, oh, it's too hard. I'm only going to be there 2 years. You can do it. There's enough people that have proved you can do it. So just get out there and do it.
All right. Another question. We have one that says, I'm kind of in a rut. I'm working on jumpstarting my art business. What can I do?
You kind of broke up there for a second, Ashley. Say that one more time.
I'm kind of in a rut. I'm working on jumpstarting my art business. What can I do?
Okay, so I don't know exactly what that means. I assume that you are an artist and you're selling art. So anytime with a product or service, you've got to find ways that people are going to find you. So in this day and age, our currency in anything we do is social media. If you haven't figured that out yet, that is everything. So you've got to find who are, again, the movers and shakers. Who do I know that has a big Facebook following, a big Instagram following, that can post on my behalf and share what I've got to give? So maybe that means with your art that you do something small that you can gift to somebody, maybe with a big following, that they can then post, on your behalf to say, look at what amazing, Narissa did with her art, and look at how great this looks in my office or something. But you've got to be like a dog with a bone to make sure that you're looking high and low for opportunities to put your stuff out there. There are so many different places. If you look, there's networking groups, there's online Facebook groups, there's, there's all sorts of different avenues on base places that you could advertise. So you just need to get out there and talk about it. But I can't emphasize enough that that social media influencers can do a lot. By having one person post on your behalf, you can gain a lot of followers. Even just what we're doing here, Boost Our Families is a huge organization. They have a lot of reach with people. If I want to talk about my book, this is the right place to do it. So find people, either military or not, in the art business that are the influencers that you can go to, and weasel your way in there to find where you can, reach as far as you possibly can. But I can't emphasize enough the power of social media. In this day and age, it is everything.
All right. I got a question. Well, it's more of a comment. Somebody missed how you turned your decorating business into six-figure income.
Okay, so I'll tell you that transition. So the decorating business, I worked for 4 years, and I will tell you, any business owner knows the first 2 years were not super profitable. The last 2 years, I ended up making about $50,000 each year, which at that time felt like, whoo, I am amazing, right? Like I had turned that simple idea into a $50,000 cushion for our failing mortgage, and I could actually breathe because we had some extra money. From there, I ended up selling my decorating business when we moved from California to DC because I couldn't manage it from across country. There was no way I could decorate homes if I wasn't there. So I ended up selling my business to my business partner who had joined me in California. She ended up selling it again, so there's a third owner. And then I joined Rodana Fields free and clear of my first business, scared out of my mind to sell stuff because really I'd never sold anything before. I didn't think of myself as a salesperson. I was more of a helper, a decorator. And I got over my fear because I said, this is too important. If I can share this kind of business with more women, I'll do it. Even if I have to sell stuff, even though I still buy all my daughter's Girl Scout cookies to this day because I don't like to think of myself as a salesperson. But if I have the motivation to help women in business, that's how I turned it into a six-figure income and a healthy six-figure income. And it's not about the money. It's more about the power of what you can do with that. But I think it's important that we talk about money because you have to know you can do it. Six-figure incomes are attainable for you too.
Awesome. Another question, how can you be reached?
Well, great question. So you can see my some of what we're doing at jengriswold.com. We have a brand new website that's actually getting updated in the next couple of weeks, so keep watching. If you want to email me, I'll go ahead and put it here in the comments of the chat, so you can directly email me that way, or you can look for me, Jen Griswold, on Facebook.
All right. And then I have one last question. Where can I purchase your book?
All right. Well, you can purchase it on Amazon. We are very proud to say that we sold out in the very first day, and we're now the #1 new release in the military category. So that's super exciting. But you can find it on Amazon, or you can go to the publisher directly at mango.bz. I think the Amazon price is just a smidge cheaper, so you might want to go there. And if you do, I would love it if any of my military friends would leave a review on there, because I would love that to be some of my nearest and dearest from the military community. And then just so you know, if you buy the book, 100% of the proceeds are being returned straight into the military community. We're going to provide more military entrepreneurship training with all the profits from the book. So I'm not making a cent. This is all for you. This is just one giant education tool.
Great. Is there any more questions? Yes, Karen, this will be available to watch again later. And I'll make sure that I send the link out to everyone who's signed in today.
Yay. And if you feel like this was motivating, please share it with somebody, because I know I would have loved somebody to share something like this with me back in the day when I was just with the seeds of an idea. So share it with somebody, and hopefully we'll inspire them.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jen.
All right, Jamie, of course, I'm going to check out what you posted about the SBA. I will tell you, actually, in my first business, I used the SBA in Fairfield, California weekly. I had a coach, and I would check out every book that they had. And the SBA is amazing to help you get off the ground when you need that little oomph. They can usually provide it. So I get a good plug for the SBA, because that was huge in the beginning of my first business.
Great. It looks like, yep. I don't have any more questions on my end.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Okay, take care.
Take care, everyone. Thanks.